A young and dynamic senator from Massachusetts captured the White House in one of the closest elections in history. But only after a few weeks, Kennedy discovered that the White House was a very lonely place. An attempt to invade Cuba at the Bay of Pigs failed miserably. In Europe, Kennedy faced a belligerent communist leader in Khrushchev, who in August of that year threw down the gauntlet and built a huge wall, turning East Berlin into a prison. In Washington, another revolution was taking place. Jackie filled the White House with style and class and the voices of young children. Whenever they could, the Kennedys retreated into the safe shelter of their Hyannisport estate, as in the summer of 1963. Jackie hated campaigning, but a new election year was coming. When Jack asked her to accompany him on a trip to Texas, a Republican stronghold, she complied. Love Field in Dallas gave the Kennedys a warm reception. But then something strange happened. Jackie was presented with a bouquet of roses. How odd, she thought. All morning long she had received yellow Texas roses. Only here, the roses were red. Just 15 miles away from Love Field Airport, a man named Lee Harvey Oswald had entered the 11th floor of the Texas Book Depository. He had a gun. As a Marine, he had spent many hours at the San Diego firing range. He was known as a good shot. In 1959, Oswald had emigrated to the USSR. He met a Russian girl, Marina, and married her. In 1962, he took her back to the States and was photographed handing out pamphlets in support of Cuba. On November 8th, he threatened he would take matters into his own hands. And now, Oswald was ready to make good on that promise. The motorcade from Love Airfield was approaching Dealey Plaza. Once there, the security detail had expected to pick up speed and go straight to the railroad underpass and onto the Stemmons Freeway. But they didn't know that this route was blocked because of a traffic island. The motorcade had to turn right into Houston Street, then make a sharp turn left onto Elm Street and past the book depository. At both turns, the motorcade would have to slow down. 12:30, the President's Lincoln limousine begins its first turn into Houston. The second turn into Elm Street. The president is hit in the neck, but not fatally. For 5 long seconds, nobody reacts. In that time, Oswald reloads and fires again. While Oswald makes his escape, the president is rushed to Parkland Hospital. But Jackie has seen his head wound and knows it is too late. Her red flowers lie crushed in the back seat of the car. While people wait in silent vigil outside, President Kennedy dies at 1:12 p.m. The police launch an all-out hunt. At 3 p.m., they arrest a man charged with the murder of an officer, Tippit. Only later, Oswald is also charged with the murder of the president. Though in front of the press, he maintains his innocence. What motivated Oswald, if indeed he was the killer? Recent disclosures have shed new light on President Kennedy's obsession with the island of Cuba. Since 1959, ruled by a Marxist dictator, Fidel Castro. The U.S.-sponsored invasion attempt had left Castro incensed and deeply insecure. Castro turned for help to Soviet leader Khrushchev, with dire results.
Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
Khrushchev had backed down and withdrawn his rockets from Cuba, but Kennedy continued plotting the overthrow of Castro with a special CIA subversion project known as Operation Mongoose. Is it possible that Castro ordered the assassination as a preemptive strike against Kennedy? At least one man seemed to think so. Lyndon B. Johnson, the new president of the United States. In his first weeks in office, he was fully briefed on the scope and objectives of Operation Mongoose. Johnson was worried that Castro might now turn on him and his family, and he ordered the project closed down. Was Oswald really a hired gun for Castro? Before he could be properly interrogated, fate intervened.
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's the man with a gun. Absolute panic.
In those days in November, it was as if the world had gone insane. With Oswald dead, the Kennedy assassination was bound to become a mystery. And so, more than 35 years later, the questions remain. What possessed the owner of a strip joint, Jack Ruby, to kill Oswald? What about the witnesses who saw and heard shots fired behind a grassy knoll? What about the unidentified figures on top of the railway underpass, a violent breach of security? All that remained were the searing images that will forever be grafted on our mind, as a nation said farewell to one of the most beloved presidents of our time.